Hello and welcome to Otterwood Cottage, where we're building a brand new smallholding in the heart of the Lincolnshire countryside. I'm Emma and we're delighted to have you along with us. It's late afternoon on Monday. I've come outside with my cup of tea to sit in the sunshine and just fill you in on what the last couple of days have been looking like. So yesterday, Sunday, I did wake up with a bit of a feeling of overwhelm, which happens to me sometimes when I've got some time off and lots of things I want to do. I kind of activate wait mode and can't quite decide what to start on or what the first thing to do is. So I didn't achieve much in the morning. I was up very early. If you know, you know. So I spent the morning just walking around the property without any plan, without any thoughts about what I was going to do, but just took a slow walk around the property, took it all in, made some plans as I was walking around, thought about what the priorities were, and came back and made a list. I think there are two types of people in this world: list people and people who can't think of anything worse. I'm definitely a list person, and it really helped me just to get all of that out onto a piece of paper and stop being up in my head about what needed to be doing. So we've got a very loose plan for the next couple of weeks. We're not tying ourselves into anything because we just know that life and the weather and all sorts of things can change what's possible, as we discovered with the polytunnel. And I think it was the polytunnel being delayed that was one of the things that had kind of stalled us, because we had been planning to move quite a lot of the seed operation, which is taking up space in the conservatory, out into the polytunnel because we'd expected that that would be built. We are something of a jungle in the conservatory at the moment, which is a wonderful problem to have. It's not something that I'm sad about, but we are at the point where everything is absolutely desperate to be potted on, particularly the tomatoes, but the sweet peppers and the chilies as well are really in need of being potted on to the next size or going into the ground. Until the polytunnel's built and the last frost has passed, which is another couple of weeks away, 3 weeks away yet, we can't put them in the ground. But I also can't pot the peppers and chilies up into the next size pot because I just simply haven't got space to store them. What I have been able to do though is shuffle some things around so that at least the tomatoes, which are the most desperate, can be potted on into the next size pot, and then hopefully by the time they're ready to go on again, they can go in the ground in the polytunnel. A bit of a long-winded way of saying basically I've had to shuffle lots of stuff around. I had two things I was able to clear out of the way. The first were the peas. So the peas were looking really healthy and ready to go out. So I was able to get those out in the bed that was already made next to where we've put the walking onions out. So I'm trying something new with the peas this year, which is to just plant them in the ground and let them grow across the ground rather than up a pea frame. We have got loads of peas, and so this is an experiment with the first lot that I've grown. The second lot I'm actually going to grow up along this fence behind us as a kind of ready-made pea frame. We're going to put in a little narrow bed like I did for the sweet peas on this side, but we're going to do that on this side, the two sides facing out towards the veg plot. So we are going to have some that are climbing, but I'm just going to let this first lot that I've planted out just scramble across the ground. Now, quite a few YouTubers I follow I've seen do this, mostly in America though, not here. So I don't know whether it's a kind of common thing in America or it just so happens that the people I've seen do that. But I thought I'd give it a go. It's a little bit of a risk on two fronts. One, I've planted them out before the last expected frost, so they might get nipped back, but I'm not too worried, as I say, because I've got plenty more to succession sow. And two, I think they might be more susceptible to rodent damage on the floor, but it's worth a risk, it's worth a trial. We've got the space to have peas growing in various different places, so we're going to give it a go. And the reason really is just I don't like building pea frames. I get in a pickle with them, they're never very strong. I always have a vision in my head that doesn't quite work out, and I just don't enjoy building them. So we thought, well, we'll get some up the fences that already exist, scramble some on the ground and just see what happens with those. So getting those out cleared some space out of one tray, which I did then fill. So I did my first April sowings yesterday as well. So I planted the other half of the tray I'd emptied because there were still seeds in there, so it was silly to leave it half empty, and then a whole brand new tray, because obviously the thing to do when you're worried about space and having too many seedlings is to plant more seedlings. That's how you get through that. So I planted a tray and a half more of seedlings, various different varieties, which I'm very excited about trying, but most of those that I've planted now don't need the kind of full-on heat, 24-hour heat of the of the conservatory. So I've transferred those trays and the other 2 trays that were in there with things growing in them out to the cold frame that Wilkes has built, which is an absolute beauty. So thanks, Wilkes. That's a fantastic addition to the Smallholding. Here we are. These are looking fantastic in the cold frame. Leeks are coming on beautifully, and some tarragon coming out, thyme, some nasturtium looking fantastic in here, as well as various other flowers, stocks, baby's breath, some scabiosa cosmos coming through, some magic carpet thyme starting to come through, and then these are the seeds I planted newly yesterday. And those ones there, also newly planted yesterday. So Wilkes has done a fantastic job in. That's 4 trays of seeds, 12 rows of 6 cells in each. That's an awful lot of stuff that we're being able to keep out here instead of taking up space in there. What a thing of beauty, look. Now that they've been moved, we've got some space in there which will allow us to pot the tomatoes on into the next size pot, and we're using the same cloth pots that we have used for our chilies and peppers. They're 1 gallon pots. Fantastic, we're really happy with them because they fold flat for storage, which is super convenient rather than having kind of pots stacked everywhere. So my next job is going to be to move those tomatoes on. They really have been left in their tiny little plots for far too long. I'm a little bit worried that they're going to go into transplant shock, but let's just see how we get on. And then in an ideal world, if I had the space, I would also be potting up the sweet peppers and the chilies into the next size, so they'd go into a 3 gallon pot, cloth pot, and they either that or they'd go in the ground, but the poly isn't ready and we're not past last frost anyway, so I wouldn't be putting them outside in the ground yet, and I just haven't got the space to have enough of the 3 gallon pots stored anywhere. But unfortunately all of the chilies and sweet peppers have started to flower, as have the aubergines, so they also need potting on, but I can't do any of those yet. We're just going to have to trust that the weather allows us to do the polytunnel next weekend, and in the meantime I'm going to pinch out all of the flowers that are appearing on the chilies, the peppers and the aubergines to just hold them back that little bit longer. And then once the poly is ready, the tomatoes can go out, clear us all of that space. They can be fleeced in the polytunnel if necessary, if we are looking at any cold nights, but the long-term forecast at the moment is showing nothing below 4 or 5 degrees, which they should be able to cope with pretty well. So the tomatoes can then go out, and the peppers, aubergines and chilies can go into their bigger pots until the nights are even warmer, when eventually they can go out into the polytunnel. So it's a bit of a game of Tetris, moving things around to try and make sure that everything fits, but it's exciting because all of those things are growing on and getting ready to be potted in. Oh, I also forgot the cucumbers. So the cucumbers are also starting to flower and even form fruit. They're going to need pinching out and potting on as well. So lots of potting on and shuffling around to do in the conservatory. And then the other thing I'm going to show you is that I've also accidentally been to a garden centre, genuinely accidentally. I had to drop my daughter off at an appointment and I had an hour to kill, and so accidentally fell into a garden centre. That happens to you as well, right? That you're passing and then you find yourself in there. And then the other thing that happens to me all the time in a garden centre, especially when I'm stressing about having too much to do and not enough time to do it, is plants accidentally fall into my trolley and then I trip and pay for them as I'm leaving. So let me show you what I got from the garden centre. So here we go. Look at this fabulous little haul from the garden centre. So we've got some 12 lavender plants which we're going to plant out the front. We've got an area alongside the drive which is just gravel at the moment, shingle, and we want that to look more beautiful, so we're going to pop lavender plants in there. And then they had some strawberries on offer, so I got 2 different types of strawberries, some sweethearts and some hanoi. Is that how you say that? You tell me. Hanoi. And that's because some of our strawberries in the fruit cage, which I will give you an update on soon, have appeared to have failed or been chomped by something. We're not quite sure what, so I'm going to replace those. I also was very sad watching other people's fantastic videos about their rhubarb coming along, realising we'd forgotten to plant any rhubarb here. So I got 4 types of rhubarb to plant: a Timperley Early, a Goliath, a Victoria, and a Sutton's Seedless. We've had the Timperley Early before, but not the other 3, so I'm excited to see what they're like. And then, as you know, our berries had been decimated by bunnies. A couple of them have survived, but not many. So I got a couple of replacements, 1 gooseberry, 1 red currant. They're not direct replacements. We had other berries in there, but I saw those and thought they looked particularly yummy. And then we have got some rosemary, another lavender there, some apple mint, some marjoram, some pineapple mint, and some lemon balm. And then I also got, I think I was saying on a previous video, that we were struggling to get wildflower seeds for a reasonable price. These are not the exact types of wildflowers that we were hoping to get. Originally, we had a kind of quite specific idea in mind, and we will still get some of the types we'd originally planned to get, but these were on special offer as a kind of 35 metre square coverage. So we got a couple of boxes of those, which will be able to go onto our berms, which you'll remember are all the way over there between the hawthorns, and give us a little bit of a splash of colour and prettiness this spring and summer, hopefully. So I'm really pleased with that. The good thing about all of these is they can go straight outside, so I'm not causing myself any more problems with the space invaders inside. Nevertheless, more things to plant, but that's what spring's all about, isn't it? And I just love it. The other thing I forgot to mention that's got completely out of control is these tomatillos. I mean, look at them, they're ridiculous. Tiny little pots they're in. I've got to do something for them, or they're just not going to survive. And in fact, like everything else, they're trying to flower, which I need them not to, but can you blame them, given they will almost certainly have completely filled their pots with roots. And look how pretty aubergine flowers are. I mean, I don't want to be seeing them right now, but they really are very beautiful things. And just look how many flowers are trying to form on these prairie fire chilies. I'm going to be here for ages pricking them out one at a time. And one final little bundle of joy that I want to share with you before we go, which is we went out today and we bought a new lawnmower. Have a look at Coco, Vivian and Donatella. These are our new little girl guinea pigs who are going to help us to mow the lawn between the woodland, between the trees that we planted in the woodland area. I can thank Geoff at Brimwood Farm for this idea, although his guinea pigs have just escaped. So I'm really hoping ours don't do the same. But the idea is you'll put them out in a run and you move the run every day or two, and they will keep the lawn area clipped nice and close for you, so you can keep them moving between the trees planted in the woodland area. They don't do any damage to the trees like rabbits would, but they keep that lawn down. Now, I'm not expecting that those 3 girls will be able to do the entire 1.5 acre area of woodland by themselves, but if the experiment works, then we can always get more guinea pigs. But for now, welcome to the 3 newest members of Otterwood Cottage.